Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. My wife and I had been planning a trip to Hawaii for over a year. We finally had enough vacation days saved up at our jobs and found a great deal on flights and a hotel. The kids were old enough now to be left with my parents for a week, so we jumped at the chance to take our first real vacation since having them. The morning we were leaving, I did a final walk around of our property. We live rurally with about 10 acres of land. I wanted to make sure nothing looked out of place before locking up. That's when I noticed one corner of our land had been cleared of trees and shrubs. Confused, I walked over to get a better look. To my shock, there was now a large in-ground pool dug into the ground, with a thatched roof tiki hut next to it. I immediately knew our neighbor Karen was behind this. She had always complained that our unused land was an eyesore. Karen would pester me to landscape it, or build something worth looking at. We had no interest in developing the land, preferring the natural environment. My fists clenched in anger. How dare she trespass and build structures on my property without permission? I took photos on my phone, documenting the scene. We needed evidence in case this ended up in court. I stomped over to Karen's house and banged on her door. When she answered, I could see smug satisfaction on her face. Clearly, she wasn't expecting me to be home. I wasted no time yelling about her audacity to build on my land. Karen laughed. "Oh, don't be silly. I did you a favor improving that hideous mess. You're welcome." I was fuming. "This is my property. You had no right to build anything here without my consent. I want this pool and tiki hut gone before I get back from my trip next week." Karen sneered. "I'm not removing anything. My contractor assured me this corner of land belonged to the county, but you have fun on your little trip." She slammed the door in my face. Still seeing red, I pulled out my phone to call the police, but my wife hurried me into the car, saying we'd deal with this when we got back. I was reluctant to leave matters unresolved, but she convinced me a police report could wait. Hawaii wasn't. Of course, the flagrant encroachment on my property plagued my mind the whole trip. I dreaded what further destruction I might find upon returning. I decided to document everything with the county assessor's office in case Karen tried claiming adverse possession. When we pulled into our driveway after the trip, my heart sank. Not only was the pool and tiki hut still there, but now there was a hot tub, stone patio, and an extravagant outdoor kitchen. I banged on Karen's door again until she answered, her smug grin never fading. She was sunbathing in a lounge chair near the pool. "Welcome home. Do you like what I've done with the place?" She smirked. "Absolutely not! I told you to remove all of this from my property!" I shouted. Karen shrugged. "Actually, I checked with the county surveyor, and this land does belong to me, so make yourself comfortable in your quaint little cottage while I enjoy my luxurious oasis," I wanted to scream, but I held my tongue and called the police to get official documentation. 2 officers arrived and I presented my deed, showing the property lines clearly encompassing the area where Karen was encroaching. The cops tried reasoning with her, but Karen crossed her arms and refused to budge. I pulled all the necessary permits from the county allowing me to build here. This homeowner is mistaken about his property lines. One officer shook his head. "Ma'am, the county does not issue permits for land that doesn't belong to the applicant. You are trespassing and will need to vacate immediately." Karen stomped her foot. "Absolutely not. I paid a lot of money for this, and I won't let you bully me into losing it." I had finally had enough of her delusional entitlement. "Here are my records from the assessor's office clearly documenting this as my land. So you will take down every single thing you built here, or the police will do it for you." The color drained from Karen's face. She realized she was caught and her claims wouldn't hold up. The officers gave her 1 week to tear down her illegal structures and restore my property to its natural state. If she failed to comply, the county would remove the buildings and charge her for the work. They also cited her for trespassing. Karen shrieked and cursed me as the police left. I just smiled and thanked the officers for their help. Finally, my patience with her nonsense paid off. The next morning, I installed cameras angled to record any activity on that part of my land. I wanted video evidence if Karen caused any damage while removing her buildings. For 2 days, there was little activity. Then contractors arrived and soon all traces of her pool, hut, and outdoor kitchen were removed. I made sure to save the footage just in case. On the last day before her deadline, I looked out to see a bulldozer approaching. Karen sat in the driver's seat, a wild look in her eyes. She plowed through the remaining structures, reducing them to rubble. Shards of concrete, wood planks, and twisted metal littered the landscape. My property was an utter disaster. Karen had completely decimated it out of spite. As soon as she left, I called the police and showed them the vandalism she committed. Karen got hit with more fines, and the cops made her pay for proper removal of the ruined structures. It drained her bank account, but I didn't feel an ounce of pity. With Karen finally off my back, I could focus on restoring my land. Thanks to her antics, I now had a very clear property line marked for the surveyor, and I began plans to build a pond and botanical garden in the space. It would be a peaceful area to relax and enjoy nature, the complete opposite of what Karen tried to force upon it. Sometimes being neighborly only goes so far. I tried reasoning with her to no avail, but standing my ground finally revealed her lies and true entitled nature. My wife says I shouldn't gloat about her demise, but whenever I visit my tranquil garden, I can't help feeling satisfied that justice prevailed. Patience and truth can defeat even the most delusional Karens. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Background. So I worked for Company A for almost a decade, which had a small team consisting of 10 people, doing commissioned work for businesses in my city. The owner treated us like family, knowing that we worked long and hard days, sometimes up to 60 hours in a week. He paid us better than expected, with bonuses and perks negotiated with businesses that commissioned our work. He even gave the whole company a paid week off when his son was getting married so we could attend it. We had our squabbles like any other family, and things weren't always bright and perfect, but this is to show how nicely the owner treated his employees, and he didn't screw me over. After working there for years, the manager position became open. Since by then I was one of the most senior workers with Company A, I thought I would apply, and a few others were interested as well. I didn't get the position, mainly because despite my experience at Company A, I didn't have a business administration degree. Someone who worked for the owner did, so he got it. Realizing the education I would have to get and the demand of this job, I thought long and hard and concluded that if I wanted to go anywhere in life, I would have to get that degree. Coming right out of high school to work for Company A was great, but if I wanted to do something more, I would have to go to university. I talked to the owner and gave my 2 weeks' notice. When I explained what I wanted to do and why, he understood that I was trying to make something of myself. This all becomes relevant later, I promise. Going to university, I found that I had tuition covered through government grants, but not things like food, rent, etc. So I looked around and eventually found work at Company B. Company B was a retail store with a bigger staff than I'd been used to, somewhere around 50 employees, but it had such a huge employee turnover that it was scary at times. They dealt with a wide range of goods from groceries to very expensive items. They had a certain niche clientele that they could order items for and catered to. I ended up working part-time in their warehouse and answered to the warehouse supervisor, who answered to the manager. There were other supervisors for other parts of the store, but for this, only the sales supervisor is relevant. Skip forward 7 years. In that time, I got my BA degree and worked at Company B the whole time, going from part-time to full-time, and eventually applied for the warehouse supervisor position. I was interviewed, got the job, and had been a supervisor for months when the manager and I hired Kay as a warehouse clerk. Kay isn't the one to get revenge, but she played a crucial part in the revenge. Then Idiot gets hired. Idiot started out as a cashier, working quickly up the chain and brown-nosing as many coworkers as possible, including the manager. When a sales rep went on maternity leave, Idiot quickly jumped at the chance to work in sales and ended up permanently being a part of that team, then the sales supervisor soon after. Me and Idiot got along like oil and water. We butted heads over things constantly. She would tell the manager all the small things that I did, but called me a snitch when I reported the issues she was causing. She would badmouth me and my warehouse staff, talk over me at meetings, and try to take credit for my ideas. She openly told coworkers that I was the cause of many issues and couldn't wait for me to leave. Oh, and she was never at fault. It would be the customer's fault, my fault, the delivery driver's fault, another coworker's fault, etc. There were times when we got along well, but they were far and few between. I get fired, so one day a very, and I mean very, expensive ring set, over $5,000 I found out later, ordered by one of our customers, comes in. Years ago, I set up a procedure for any type of jewelry so that it will not get lost or stolen. The last step is, once we have done everything with it in the warehouse, we take it to the office and have someone put it in the safe immediately. This particular time, I was the one who received the rings. So, once going through the procedure, I told Kay that I was taking it to the office. The only one available who had the combination to the safe was Idiot. I asked her if she could open the safe. She looked at me, looked at the jewelry box in my hand, then said, "Put it down here on my desk. I'll put it away once I'm done with this email." Keep in mind that me and Idiot had had a serious spat over something earlier that day, and I generally didn't feel like being close to her if I could help it. So I never saw her put it in the safe myself. The next day I get a call from the manager to come to the office. I head there to find the manager, Idiot, and the HR consultant they pull in when some real stuff hits the fan. Manager tells me that said ring set has disappeared. I tell them the procedure I followed and that the last I saw them was with Idiot. Manager tells me that Idiot checked the box and that said box was empty. Manager then pulls the box out. Sure enough, the box the rings were in was indeed empty. I swear to Manager that the rings were inside when I checked them before giving them to Idiot. At this point, it's my word against hers. By a stroke of bad luck, the in-store video recorder had broken down days before the incident, so there was no way to verify what happened. We all know someone has to take the blame for this, and that's when Idiot strikes, saying that it was my fault, since it was last seen in my hands. Manager asks if this is true, then I realize that yes, I was indeed the last person to touch the thing, and I never actually saw Idiot pick up the box. Idiot gives me the look that screamed, "Gotcha!" Manager and the HR consultant ask us both to leave. After what seemed like forever, I get called in. Manager tells me that since I was responsible for the rings at the time and now they are lost, they would be firing me. But since they had no proof as to whether I stole the rings or not, they wouldn't press charges, which scared the crap out of me as this was the first time I heard of them thinking this. I go back to the warehouse, tell Kay and the other warehouse clerks just what happened, grab my personal belongings, and leave that day. After a couple of weeks of trying to get my head around what happened and weighing my options, I decide my first priority is to try to get some sort of job, and consider it lucky if I get a job flipping burgers with the bad rep when they ask Company B. I call the owner of Company A to get a good reference from them and explain what happened and why I was calling, only to get the shock of a lifetime. The manager position was about to be open. The guy who I lost the position to was retiring soon due to complicated health reasons. Owner had kept tabs on me while at university, and understood when I didn't immediately come back to him, but with a golden opportunity like this, he wanted me back, and I wasn't going to say no. I dive into my new job I originally wanted with an owner I enjoyed working for. I thought, then and there, everything would be behind me, not knowing it would come back not to bite me, but to pay dividends. The revenge, Kay's side. This I found out after Idiot's reckoning. After I was fired, Kay knew she had to do something about Idiot. Kay knew that I wouldn't lose or steal something like the rings, but also knew that without proof, Idiot would deny that she did it and have Kay in her crosshairs to attack next. So, after talking with her husband, she hatched a plan. She started hanging out with Idiot, telling her things like, "I'm so glad he's gone," or "Wish he had been fired much earlier." Idiot, feeling high from getting rid of one of her thorns in her side, soaked it all in, and after a couple weeks invited Kay and Kay's husband, from now on KH, for drinks at her place with her and Idiot's husband BH. Months pass, Kay and KH do things regularly together with Idiot and BH, including drinking on weekends and couple-related events. When together, Kay would occasionally badmouth me, and Idiot would agree. Finally, after over a year of playing nice, when Kay and KH were over at Idiot's for one of their drinking parties, Kay randomly badmouthed me, mentioning the rings in passing. Then Idiot says something that Kay was waiting for. I wanted those rings, so I stole them. Kay, hearing this, asks for more details. KH looks at her, tries to wave her off with one hand, then gives up when Idiot keeps talking. That day, Idiot had stopped writing her email and was going to put the rings in the safe. The safe was open, and she was about to put the rings away when Idiot had an idea. See, as mentioned above, Idiot wanted me gone from Company B. She also wanted those rings. She also knew that the cameras weren't working. She figured that she could pocket the rings, tell the manager they were missing, and spin it so I would take the blame. Kay then asks where the rings are now, and Idiot, being too drunk and not seeing a reason not to brag, not only tells her but shows her where they are in her room, all while KH had been recording the whole conversation on his phone. The hand waving was him saying he started recording. Kay gives a copy of the recording to the manager the next workday. Police are called immediately. Idiot is arrested, and her house is raided. They find the rings. Kay and KH give the recording and testimonies to the police. Idiot's reckoning has begun. Revenge. My side, I get a call from the prosecutor's office after Idiot is arrested and charged with theft over $5,000, among other things. He wants me to testify about what she did to me. I didn't skip a beat in saying yes. Fast track to the trial, the prosecutor has me, Kay, and KH testify and plays the recording of Idiot admitting that she stole them. Her attorney tries to throw out the case, saying that Kay got Idiot deliberately drunk, but the judge didn't buy it, since there was proof she drank all the time. The judge was lenient and gave her 5 years in prison, which she yelled was unfair, but I personally thought she got off easy. Meanwhile, as the trial was happening, I was talking with a lawyer to sue Idiot for setting me up like she did. We were also going to sue Company B for wrongful termination, but they settled the day they got notice of the lawsuit and knew they would lose. Idiot wasn't so lucky. They tried some trickery by having BH divorce her, and he received everything in the divorce, but my lawyer added him into the lawsuit as well. My lawyer asked for a total of $3,500 for emotional distress, back pay from when I was fired until I started up with Company A again, and legal fees. And now you are wondering where the metaphorical cherry is on this story? Well, recently we had someone leave Company A, so we were hiring someone to replace them. The owner was going over the resumes and set up interviews for the job this week. Lo and behold, Idiot was one of the people to apply, but he didn't know that. I looked at the resume, was about to trash it, but then smiled. The owner set up the interview. She came in at her slotted time, looking to brown nose her way through. Then she saw me. I smiled an evil smile. She went white. All I said was, Idiot, how are you? Remember me? A deer in the headlights looked from her. I looked at her resume and said, I'm sorry, I do not think you will be a good fit for our company. Thank you for applying. She didn't say one word and left. The next one is a petty revenge story. My siblings and I had a part-time nanny growing up since both our parents worked. Her job was to pick us up from school in the afternoon, drive us to after-school activities, bring us home, and prepare dinner. We lived in a subdivision where my parents owned 2 pieces of property, one property where our house stood, and an empty lot next door. The empty lot wasn't fenced in, and it's essentially a bare piece of property. This subdivision is considered small. Only 60 properties, allowing everyone to know each other. My parents moved there in the first year of their marriage, and were literally one of the first families that ever lived there. Nanny started working for us when my oldest brother came into the picture, and stayed with us for over 25 years before she retired. Everyone in the subdivision knew her and loved her. Nanny loved to garden, and my parents gave her carte blanche on the empty lot. She cared for that garden so much, and we had a lot of fresh vegetables and fruit growing up. Nanny could take home as much produce as she wanted as well. One day Nanny started to notice that her harvest was decreasing and couldn't figure out why. There were bananas that she was sure were there a week ago that were now gone. The only harvest left were the ones that were already turning brown, etc. After finding out Nanny's concerns, my dad installed CCTV cameras along our perimeter fence that looked out to the empty lot where Nanny's garden stands. Sure enough, the CCTV catches a neighbor stealing Nanny's hard-earned harvest. It was a new neighbor, Karen, who was treating our garden as her own personal produce section. Karen steals at the oddest hours too, when no one could see her. Think 5 a.m., 11 p.m. Well, that didn't sit well with Nanny. We give away produce to our neighbors. If they ask for some, Nanny will give them away. The key word, however, is that they ask, not steal. So what does Nanny do? When Nanny was sure that Karen was the thief, she cooked an extra-large serving of dinner one night and took some over to Karen's house. Her young son answered the door, possibly 8, 10 years old, and Nanny asked for Karen. When Karen came to the door, Nanny in a loud voice said, I brought you dinner since I noticed that you've been helping yourself to our garden recently. I didn't want you or your children to go hungry. Karen was obviously red in the face and shut the door quickly, without getting the food Nanny was offering. She missed out because Nanny was an amazing cook. Her son was right by the door watching the exchange too. It didn't stop there. Since Nanny knew a lot of people in the neighborhood and people loved her back, she connived with some other people to bring Karen dinner for the next 3 days. On the fourth day, Karen's husband dropped by the house and apologized for Karen's behavior and offered to compensate Nanny for whatever Karen stole. As far as I know, no one messed with Nanny ever again. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.